Welcome to Inspiration Contagion, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each interview spotlights transformational business leaders, their stories, challenges, and advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. Learn how you too can achieve peak performance, build more revenue, and lead the legacy you were meant to lead. Welcome back to Inspiration Contagion. Stephanie Shaw is my guest this month. Stephanie Shaw is the founder of Stephanie Lynn Shaw and host of Hello Hot Flash podcast. She's an educator by nature. Stephanie took the strategy she implemented to recover from a 2-year illness and turned them into a nutrition, coaching, and online education business, where she teaches midlife women how to manage their hormones to lose weight and slow the aging process. Stephanie's online course, Mastering Menopause, supports midlife females by helping them peel back the layers that are blocking them so they can control the midlife change. As a result, women build lasting lifestyles of confidence, energy, and the body they deserve. I don't know about you, but that sounds absolutely delightful. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Holly. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. We're going to dig right in, and I want to hear what makes you an inspirational leader, or what's your secret sauce?
Yeah, that's a loaded question in a lot of ways, but I think one of the things that makes me an inspirational leader is that I practice what I preach. So I am really in tune with the way that I work and my work habits. I work super, super hard, and I expect the same thing, but I always show up with kindness, always show up in a way that the people around me know that I respect them as a colleague. They know that I'm there for them if they have any questions and or concerns. So by me showing that to them, I believe, based on the people that work for me, that it inspires them to want to work harder because they know I'm not micromanaging or anything like that. I'm just there for them so we can get the job done and then get out of there.
I love that. It sounds a little bit to me like your secret sauce is showing belief in the people that work with you or work for you so that they can instill their own self-belief and purpose, kind of fueling their internal inspiration through how you show up. Is that accurate?
I think that's point on, and I so love talking with you because you are like the master wordsmith, and you're so right that once you let people know that you trust them, you respect them, and you honor the work that they do, that's when you can inspire them to do work for you. I've had people show up unexpectedly and or go way over and beyond. And it was just because I took the time to establish that relationship first, and also showing up with kindness as I'm working with folks.
I love that. And, kind of want to go a little off script here, but tell us a little bit about Hello Hot Flash and the secret sauce or inspiration behind your vision for that community and that platform.
Yeah, so the reason that I started the platform is because personally I was sick for 2 years. I went to 18 different doctors, 2 world-renowned medical facilities, spent over $20,000 out of pocket. And at the end of the day, I was able to recover drug-free. So that's the core of what we do on Hello Hot Flash. When I'm interviewing a gynecologist or naturopath, functional medicine doctor, and we're having those conversations, at the end of the day, I want people to be able to walk away with some advice that is going to help them, not necessarily just gravitate initially to a drug or something like that. So the secret sauce, I think, behind that is that drug-free living, because I'm living proof after having, the other day I was looking at a list of menopausal symptoms. I'm like, I had that. After looking at this list, I'm like, I had like 95% of this and was able to recover in a manner that did not require any drugs and so forth. So being able to provide that information to folks is one of my biggest passions. And that's what we do on Hello Hot Flash, the podcast.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, walking the talk of what we teach in our business, on our platforms, and our communities is so, so important because it shows that it works. It's, living proof. It's showing through story and through case study that it is possible, which also gives hope and inspiration to those that are, stuck and they're still struggling with that pain or that problem. So it's amazing that you're doing that. And I also want to ask you, since we're on Inspiration Contagion, what does inspiration mean to you?
Oh, it means quite a few things. I think it means a feeling. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. It's like a feeling you get when you see people overcome different obstacles in their life. So that feeling you get so during the time that I was sick, I was able to see other women going or that had already gone through what I'd gone through. And by that, I was inspired, knowing that I could persevere, that I could get through this journey in life and get through it in a helpful way. I'm inspired by, and inspiration means to me, the things that I see even my adult children doing. So I have my middle son who is a designer by trade, but for the past 10 years, he's wanted to open a mobile barbershop, and it finally opened. And so, it's spectacular. It's beautiful, but him having that entrepreneurship vision, it inspires me every single day to want to do better and to be better. So again, it's just that feeling that you get when you see people go through their personal journey, how you can pull from that. That is what inspiration means to me.
And that's perfect because that's what this podcast and this show is all about, is so that we can borrow from other people's stories of inspiration and their fuel for inspiration and finding their passion. And I do believe that inspiration fuels more inspiration. And when we have stories of success or stories of overcoming challenges, which we often do on this show, it helps us go back to our internal fuel. And it reminds us that we're not alone. It reminds us that, life throws us curveballs, but we can still get back on track. And if we tune back into our passion, our inspiration, our creativity, and community, we can do and achieve anything. So thank you for sharing that, and congratulations to your son. That sounds really cool and really hip, and I'm sure it's really successful. Speaking of success, I want to ask you some questions around peak performance, since I am a revenue and peak performance guru and consultant. I want to ask you, how do you define peak performance, and how did you arrive at this definition?
So I look at peak performance as your three things being in sync: your mind, your body, and your business. And if they're not all in sync, you cannot get to your peak performance. So, and I more than likely, I think I arrived at it because at the time that when I was sick, I was running an education nonprofit. It was $1 million nonprofit. I had to end up closing it, and I could not operate at peak performance because I was showing up at work sick every day, or spending a lot of times going back and forth to the doctor. So for me, it's having those three things in line. So if you're not physically feeling well, the other two get off. So you need to make sure that your mind is in the right place, that your body is operating at 100, and then that's how you're going to get your business to operate the way that you need for it to operate. So that peak performance is just having those three things in line and in sync with one another. I think that's my definition of it, and how I think you can have that type of performance.
Yeah, and we align on that because the way I teach and present peak performance and work with folks on this in their businesses with their employee experience, their customer experience is slightly different, but health, clarity, and business. And for me, the second piece, clarity, is values, legacy, and leadership, and fine tuning how you're showing up based on your vision, your mission, what you're called to do, the legacy you want to leave behind. So similar to what you're describing. So it's pretty neat that we're aligned on peak performance. And you certainly can't get anywhere close to peak performance if you're unhealthy. So it's wonderful what you're doing for women in midlife to help them reach their optimal peak performance even during that transition. So I wanted to ask you, none of this is perfect, right? We're not always in optimal peak performance. What are some of the challenges or obstacles that you faced along your journey to peak performance?
Yeah, so I've faced so many. I think, as I mentioned before, like the things not being in sync. So sometimes I had the health and the nutrition and even the business. Everything was like, it was all going well, but in my mind, I was operating from a place of fear or lack of confidence or not being bold enough in my business. So all three weren't aligned. And then every once in a while, I would, be like, I'm fearless. I have so much confidence. My business is kicking butt. And then I'm feeling sick. So the challenge is keeping all three in alignment. And it takes a lot of work. You have to really be able to recognize that they're out of alignment, first of all, because a lot of times people don't realize it, why they're stressed out or why their mindset is a certain way. So recognizing why you're out of line or out of sync is the first thing. But those become the challenges when all three don't line up. There's just something missing. And to overcome those challenges, become aware and then have a plan as to what you need to do. When I have the mindset part, I have an awesome coach who helps me through that mindset piece. The nutrition part, I've learned on my own what I need to do. And then the business part also, awesome coach that helps me through that as well. So getting someone to actually coach you when there may be some type of deficit, when there's challenges that come up, I think that's a solution to some of the challenges that we may have.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're giggling because Stephanie's one of my rock star, all-star clients. She is kicking some tail out there and taking names. And, full disclosure, I have a coach too. We all need them because we have these blind spots. It's funny. I was just talking to another client today, and she is kind of backed into a corner and feeling extremely overwhelmed. So like Stephanie just shared, that means something's out of alignment in those three categories. And for this particular client, it's probably under the clarity section. It's that we've kind of lost track of the compass, or it's shifted. The priorities are a little different. And so the things that we're saying yes to aren't quite right. So we're kind of dialing that back in so that we can get out of overwhelm and breathe again and things start flowing. And so I think for listeners right now, one thing that I would say to recognize, like Stephanie was mentioning, when you're out of alignment is when everything you touch just turns to, it's not working. I'm trying not to use foul language. It turns the wrong way. You're getting a bad result. You're getting the opposite result of what you want. It's turning negative stuff out, and you're in the doldrums. You're stuck. When you keep doing that, the definition of insanity is to try the same thing over and over again, expecting a new outcome. Sometimes when we keep getting negative results, we need to stop, step back, and work with somebody external or do something different to get out of that rut. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's super powerful for people that are listening. I also want to ask you, related to peak performance, for you, how are you creating a culture or a community of peak performance on Hello Hot Flash for women?
So I think what I do is lead with transparency, and I lead with my heart. So that platform of Hello Hot Flash, that there are some open, raw conversations that happen on the podcast. There's some open, raw conversations that happen offline with people who know that I do the podcast. People will send me questions or grab me and ask me questions to ask other doctors. So I like to lead with my heart and lead with transparency. I can't just get on there and interview someone and just, please explain estrogen, please explain testosterone, please explain this. Like, we have to be, it's true though. Like, you can Google the definition. We have to be open about what's actually going on in our bodies. I did an interview earlier today, and we were talking about hot flashes and so forth. I'm like, full transparency, I know that tropical fruit gives me a hot flash, but what did I do for the past 2 weeks? I ate tropical fruit. It was really good. Now I'm having hot flashes. But I know why. So I've made a conscious decision. I'm not going to eat them, until the next season that they come out, or even if I decide to do it then. But that's just a mild transparency. Like, we go really deep sometimes on the podcast. And I think that is how you create a culture of women who learn how to advocate for themselves, women who learn like what's going on in my body, women who learn not to take no or your results are okay when you get that from that doctor. So that culture of being open is really, really what I'm focusing on as I'm creating the podcast and leading people to listen to it.
Well, what I like about that example too, and being authentic and having that transparency in your community, it allows your community and those women a safe space to also recognize that you're human, that you're gonna, you can make the choice and say, hello, hot flash, literally by, making decisions where you're gonna have more hot flashes. And that's the transaction that you make. You make that choice consciously, and that's okay. And I think that's really important, because even in business too, sometimes we make conscious choices that we know aren't great. And, we want to obviously do things repeatable that, are successful. We want to repeat those actions that we know generate successful outcomes. But at the same time, we need to give ourselves permission to experiment and fail, or consciously choose to fail for a moment or a season, and forgive ourselves, because nothing's perfect. I can have a new sales methodology that I'm implementing for my business, and I try something new and it doesn't work. And I could be really hard on myself, or I can get on the next call and be like, okay, well, that didn't work. That was really fascinating. I learned something valuable there. Or I can totally flop a call because I'm out of balance. Like we just said, like my peak performance is off, my mindset is off, and that's going to resonate through a call with a potential client. But it's really important to create a community and a culture, whether it's for a platform of clients or your employee experience, where you exhibit and exude the values that are important, and you allow a safe space for them to fail purposely or accidentally, and look at that and reframe it to get them back on track for success. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you too.
Yeah, well spoken.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also want to ask you, how important is the community experience that you're creating through Hello Hot Flash to peak performance in your business and your long-term goals?
Yeah, so that community will lead me to reaching some goals as it relates to being able to reach a wider audience, and not a wider audience just to sell them the course that I have or to work one-on-one with them, and a wider audience that is going to allow me to fulfill a mission and a vision and a purpose to get the message out around what is going on in our healthcare system and how that healthcare system, it can benefit you, but you have to take ownership yourself. So using that platform to launch a larger platform where those conversations are being had, where in the workplace, in Europe, there are actually HR policies around menopause and the HR policies around how you handle someone who has menopause in the workplace. We don't have that same thing in the United States, at least not at that rate. So this is a platform that will allow me to start having those larger conversations so that more women don't have to suffer like I did. There is no reason that it took 2 years for me to figure out what was wrong with me, because out of those 18 doctors, not one person talked about nutrition. And in the past couple of weeks, I've been writing my new course, Mastering Menopause. And I'm like, hey, wait, none of them asked me if I was menopausal either. Like, I don't know if they would have thought that they would have hurt my feelings. I'm not quite sure why. But building that culture so that women walk in knowing that, yes, something is wrong and I'm not going to take no for an answer. You're going to help me figure it out, even if I have to go to 18 doctors, 2 world-renowned medical facilities, and spend $20,000 out of pocket. So it's just part of a bigger platform.
That's so important, and we could certainly spend hours on that topic alone. But what I will say that's super valuable about what Stephanie just shared is the strongest leaders and the people that stay the course and they're heart-centered, they have peak performance, are the ones that have a clear vision and mission. And it's oftentimes bigger than what we see as consumers or clients or community members. But when they share their message and their vision, it connects so clearly to something larger that it's inspiring. It really is. So hearing about how Stephanie is targeting midlife women who are facing menopause challenges, and in particular, we're based in the United States, and we recognize that there are healthcare challenges and things that other countries are further ahead of the curve. This is a great way where a movement, a podcast, a show can actually start moving the needle in small ways and having ripple effects by not only empowering these women to say, gosh, you're in charge of the conversation you have with your healthcare advocates, with your healthcare providers, but also by interviewing healthcare professionals like Stephanie is and having deeper conversations around this larger problem. This is how we fix things. And this is why it's so important that inspiring entrepreneurs and leaders that see these bigger problems, we do this in a way that we're affecting communities and having that ripple effect, because this is how we make change that's sustainable. We could try to go through the political system. We could try to go through the policy system, but things like Hello Hot Flash are powerful and it has that ripple effect. And I can't wait to see where this goes. And I love that that's your vision for the future of this community. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. And since we're talking about amazing experiences, I want to hear, what have you done to optimize your customer experience for your guests as well as the people that are consumers of the Hello Hot Flash podcast and your coursework?
Yeah, so systems. I think that that is, there's the soft side of, me being kind and following up and doing what I need to do. But I think people actually appreciate the hard side too, the systems that are in place. I will not tell you how many times one of the first things people say to me when they're coming on the interview is like, I only needed to talk to you once and you have everything that you need. I'm like, yeah, because we have systems in place. So I think that that's super important. When guests come on, I send them a link, they fill out all the information, and then I have a system where I follow up with them for the next 6 months. Like, how are they doing? How can I support them? How can they continue to support and promote the podcast? So creating that, I feel like it optimizes that experience for the customer, and with the for the guest, it's that consistency. So no matter what you do in your business, if you have a podcast or if you sell widgets, you have to be consistent in what you're doing. And so that's what I provide too. So every Thursday morning, 5 a.m., the podcast launch. By 9 a.m., the social media is up. And first of all, you're going to know consistently when you're going to get the message, but also you'll know what that message is all about. You know that it is going, if you're 35, 40 plus, perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal, you'll know that that message is for you. So that having that available for the customer, I think heightens the experience. And I also think it helps them with loyalty, because now a lot of the interviews that I get, people trust me, so they're referring other doctors to me, and I'm not searching all the time. So I love a system. Love a system.
This is why Stephanie and I work well together, because I also love processes and systems, and effectiveness and not leaving revenue on the table. And ironically enough, a lot of people, where they mess up is they're so obsessed with lead generation and getting the sales, and that they forget about the customer experience. And that starts from the sales conversation to then the onboarding experience to, they have that moment, they purchase something with you and they're like, oh man, was that the right choice? And they start freaking out. They have this natural psychology tendency towards buyer's remorse. And so how do we get ahead of that? Because we know that's going to happen. So how do we instead keep them inspired, excited, remembering that they trust us, remembering that we can help them with the problem that they're facing, and keep them moving to that next part? And then being obsessed with your customer experience, which is what I work with my clients on. One piece of it is, if you're starting to notice 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in, 2 years in, that there's this drop off or there's a challenge that you're seeing your customers consistently have, getting ahead of that. But that means you're in constant conversation and relationship with them, and you need systems to do that. And you need gifts and generosity. A lot of what I teach my clients, even from a lead gen perspective, is give, get. You notice I'm not one of those spammy, salesy people on LinkedIn that's like, oh, let me sell this to you immediately. We've all had those. It's like gross, like that car salesman feeling, right? When you're actually a visionary, right? When you're a visionary leader, it's the opposite. Yeah, you're doing this from a servant leadership perspective. You can tell Stephanie cares about these women. She wants to change their lives. She wants to transform the healthcare system. She wants to empower them. And that is what that experience and community is all about. And she has the systems to make sure she stays in constant contact with her community and with her guests. And that's how you optimize peak performance in your customer journey. So for those of you listening, I would encourage you to look at, reflect on, and improve your customer journey. And it starts by listening to your customers, right?
Totally agree.
So we're going to pivot a little bit. We're going to talk about money. Everybody's favorite part of the world. It's so funny. Like there's like this, I'm really uncomfortable, I don't want to talk about money. And then there's the whole Jerry Maguire, show me the money. So let's talk about the show me the money. Okay. So Stephanie, when have you left money on the table in your business, and what did you do to fix it?
I think I leave money on the table. I'll be honest. Some days I think every day I'm like, wait, I could have asked that question. All right. So, again, this is not, me, trying to turn into the Holly show, but I will say that you've taught me a lot of different things where I'm not doing that as frequently as I did in the past. Like being bold enough to ask the question. The only thing they can do is say no. Being prepared when they say yes, I think are key. But I've on purpose left money on the table as well. So I've had someone offer to, well, I won't even say just in case they listen, but I've had an offer and it didn't align with the work that I was doing. So I've on purpose left money on the table as well, because I have a clear vision and I know what I want the company to look like and feel like, and I know who I want engaged, not excluding anyone. I just have a vision of what I want. So yeah, I've left money on the table, but I also am learning how not to do that by being bold and asking the questions that need to be asked.
Yeah. And I mean, first of all, yes, of course, it's asking those questions. It's not, I think a big part of where people leave money on the table is when they have the sales conversation, they let people get off the hook. They don't really lead them to a yes or a no. And our job when we're on a sales call, because sales is really about service, it's about change and transformation, helping that person get over the pain point or problem that they're suffering and struggling from. And so when we do a disservice to people when we have these sales conversations and we let them have these surface level excuses of why they're not moving forward. So we really want to dig to the root cause and the root problem. And if it is something that's really important for them to solve, get them to that yes, or get them to an honest answer of, well, I don't trust you, or I don't want to work with you. But what's even more important, which was almost kind of like a mic drop moment from Stephanie, was sometimes it's important, and this is where wisdom and practice comes into place, to intentionally leave money on the table. I had 2 sales calls this morning, and I intentionally left money on the table. They were not aligned with the community I was selling for, in the mastermind that I do in partnership. And the energy shifted just so dramatically. And there was this distrust. And when I'm on a sales call and I have to prove it to somebody, like in a really excessive way, it's one thing if somebody's analytical and they have questions and like they're doing their due diligence, but it's another thing when they're like, oh, I don't believe anything you're saying. That's not an aligned customer or client, and you know they're going to be a nightmare. So we're not saying to always, like, there are times where wisdom will tell you to leave money on the table because it's going to be headache, nightmare money. So that's not what we're talking about. So that is amazing that you did that. I'm so glad that you said no to that because it was not aligned. So I want to ask you, if we could wave a magic wand and show you where your profit leaks are, what would you do with that knowledge?
I'd feel my profit leaks, of course. Short answer, but I would. So I would take that information, and I am, and I think as entrepreneurs, we all need to, if you have someone that is a couple steps ahead of you and they're doing something that is working for them, and then they're giving you advice as to what you need to do in order to move forward, I say take that advice. So if you had that magic wand and could say, Stephanie, you just created a course, but I see that you should have this VIP upsell at the end of your, when people sign up, or you need to do XYZ to fill that gap, I would listen to what you're saying. And then as long as it's in alignment with the vision and the mission and the work that I do, take that advice to make sure I'm filling that leak.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a particular profit leak you're working on right now?
I think it is the course. So I created a course called Mastering Menopause. I am doing the soft launch, kicks off tomorrow. And then I have a master class that will be April 17th. And all the information is on my website. So that I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, am I potentially leaving money on the table with the course? What else could I be selling? Do I do a higher upsell? Do I do a medium upsell? What does that all look like? So that actually is something that I'm working on right now.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I would say one nugget of wisdom for filling that initial class would be look at your existing community base for Hello Hot Flash. Make sure through the systems you're already using that you are having not salesy touch points, but offering, touch points of generosity so that they're curious and looking at that. Leverage your existing list. Obviously, leverage LinkedIn outreach and whatnot. And then also there's something to be said for the art of gifting, right? So you could even do some sort of gift offer for your first beta launch of this class where they're getting a 50% discount and they're considered founders so that they have direct feedback on how this course will work in the future, which is pretty cool because then it's actually impacting your vision and mission and they're part of that legacy. So I think if you frame it that way, you're going to get people really excited to participate and be part of something bigger. And that's what sells. It's the connection with people, but also connection with legacy.
Yeah, I like that. So I did do the $100 off for the first set of people who sign up. But what you said, I hope everyone actually heard that. Making them a founder, bringing them in, making them part of the community, that's transferable, not just for a course, but any type of business that you're in, making people feel a part of the process. So love that. I'll add that in the verbiage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and making people feel special, making them feel like they're part of something bigger than just themselves, and reminding them of the support structure that they need. Because ultimately, sales, as we've said before, is about change. And if the change is too big or overwhelming, people aren't going to sign up for it. So the easier and more simple you can make it and paint that picture of how you're guiding them. And a huge part of that oftentimes is the community support system and accountability they receive is a huge part of that. So, amazing. All right. I'm going to ask you another cool, fun revenue question. What shiny object or idea would you like to turn into a revenue stream?
So my shiny object is YouTube. Is that a shiny object?
It can be. Yes, it can be. Tell me more.
When I record the podcast, I also record video as well. And I haven't done anything with the video. And YouTube, just within the past 2 weeks, launched something more in line with podcasters. So that's my shiny object. I am thinking about what does that look like, maybe late Q2, early Q3. How do I get those up and then get some of the people who may not like to just listen to audio, who want to see me cracking up or my hair looking funky that day. I want to actually see the video, get them over to YouTube. So YouTube is my shiny new object. 2, actually. And then the other is creating another course, but designed specifically for HR departments in the United States.
Ooh, okay. Real quick, since we are running low-ish on time. For the first shiny object, which it's funny because when I ask this question, it's people have shiny object syndrome because they have so many ideas. So I'm like, we can't just do one. So the first one, YouTube's. So with YouTube, one of the marketing things that I've learned, and I can't fully take credit for this, but Matt Rouse, one of my other business partners, is super smart in the YouTube space, and he's like obsessed with it. So one of the challenges he gave me recently, and this is how you help lead the horse to water. You can't make the horse drink the water, but get them to your YouTube channel. You're going to do some vertical, so you can use your phone, record some vertical YouTube short videos. So let's say you have an episode and you're talking about testosterone and menopause. Do a short on that and do a vertical video of it, or just take a segment of your recording from that podcast. So you can repurpose that content and then just do a vertical clip into the frame, which I think you can do on Canva and different platforms that edit video. Add subtitles and then post that, and make sure you title it something very specific based on what somebody would search for. So whatever the problem or pain point related to testosterone and menopause that's related to that clip. So think about the 10 biggest pain points that your client or your community is trying to solve. Do some verticals around that, and you can even pull from your existing videos that you've recorded from the podcast and post them on YouTube. That's going to help optimize search for your YouTube channel to get more subscribers. And then you can also repost and repurpose those shorts on different social media avenues to start growing that. Now, how you monetize that, you can also eventually, once you have a bigger subscribership, start having sponsors that come on and have commercials on your YouTube channel. So that's one. The course, remind me of the course again, because that was a lot to cover.
I know, right? It will be another menopause course, but it's designed for HR departments, it's B2B. It's a B2B course. And it's working with someone who has, the co-writer has an HR background.
Got it. Okay. So for that, I would use LinkedIn, and I would target the specific HR individuals you're trying to work with. I'd use the give, get approach to start building that relationship. I would then bring those HR professionals as guests onto your podcast and have an interview with them to build the relationship. And then after that, have a conversation and say, gosh, this was so helpful, so wonderful. I love the chemistry we had. I wanted to share and introduce something to you. I have this course that I help organizations with, menopause and navigating that. Would you like to hear more? So that's how I would monetize that one.
Amazing, as always.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. All right. We're just showing the money, showing the money. It's amazing. All right. So we're going to, we're going to wrap it up with some rapid fire questions, and then I will share some additional stuff. So what's the best one piece of advice you would share with others today?
Give like it's your last day on earth. So not live, but give.
Ooh, I like that. Give like it's your last day on earth. Wisdom. What is the legacy you wish to leave behind?
That I loved my family and I walked and talked in my values. So I actually lived out my values.
Amazing. I love that. And Stephanie has been incredibly generous for our listeners today. Stephanie, why don't you tell our listeners about the free gift that you're offering?
Yeah, so all of us have, well, not all of us, a lot of people have a problem with sleeping. So we have a free link for you so you can get some information, the 12 steps on how to sleep better. And then within that, there will be some additional information for you as well. They're life-changing.
Amazing. And as we mentioned earlier, peak performance includes peak health, and you can't be healthy if you're not sleeping, and your mind is not healthy if you're not sleeping. So make sure you take advantage of that. For those of you who've been listening to the podcast, the show for a while, you know I am obsessed with getting sleep and optimizing sleep. So I will also be checking out Stephanie's tips on this. And I do hope that you also subscribe to Stephanie's podcast, Hello Hot Flash, and share it with other women who need to hear this knowledge and other health providers who need the knowledge as well, so that Stephanie can interview them and start making strides towards that vision and mission of improving and empowering healthcare in the US and beyond on this particular topic. With that, that brings us to the end of our episode today, or the end of the show. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining us and for sharing your wisdom and your story.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. I will see everybody on our next episode. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. If the show inspired you, I ask that you subscribe and share it with your network. Let's spread inspiration together today.